Okay. Go ahead. Sure.
So, on the migrant rights, you have successfully riveted the nation's attention on mass migration.
I hear you.
Florida is not a sanctuary state. Do you think the process of what has been done, what you all are doing,
If you had done it with notice, if you had called your counterpart in Massachusetts and said, Governor, we're sending you 50 Venezuelan migrants, they'll land at 3 o'clock tomorrow, do you think that might have taken some of the teeth out of the blowback and criticism?
Absolutely not. You know how I know that? Biden has dumped people all over the fruited plain in the middle of the night with zero notice. There's small towns that are getting inundated with people with zero notice. And so that's not something that they've been doing. So the issue is just simply, we had a policy when Joe Biden took office that was working. It was orderly. There's a whole cottage industry that anyone that wants to get in should just claim asylum. Most of these people clearly do not qualify for asylum, so that is being abused. So when you have a process like Remain in Mexico, someone can still make the claim, but then this way, when it's denied, you're not going to get entry in the United States on that basis. Joe Biden reversed that policy, and he reversed many others. So now you have massive chaos that's happening, millions and millions of people coming across illegally. Yes, you have really serious things happening along the way to the border, which no one seems to care about. You have people that once they get in are basically destitute in some parking lot. They're not upset about that. They're not upset about all the fentanyl that's coming into this country and is now leading to record fentanyl deaths. And that would not be happening if we had a secure border. And yes, Maduro is releasing people from prison. This is being used strategically to weaken our country. So if you have criminal aliens coming in and they victimize Americans, those crimes should not have happened if we just had a secure border. So no one really cared about that on the national media perspective until 50 show up in Martha's Vineyard. And you got to ask yourself, you have to ask yourself on this, okay, why is that such a big deal, but it wasn't a big deal when 50 migrants died in some shed in Texas? Is it just because they didn't want their wealthy island to be having to be exposed to the unwashed masses, and they were offended that they actually had to deal with reality? So I think we have a situation in this country where we have a policy that is simply unjustifiable. But the people that support the policy are imposing the costs of that policy on other people. They don't want to have to pay any type of cost on this. And don't forget, this is an island that advertised to be sanctuary, and they said they didn't have the resources to take 50. Well, just imagine how all these other places across our country are having to be due. So it's chaotic. It's not the way you do business. Now everybody is talking about it. And look, they're busing to New York City, D.C., all this stuff. And that's not the solution, though. The solution is to recognize the policy has failed and to change the policy. And you could do that very easily in ways that have been proven to work. So hopefully we're going to be talking about this a lot more now. This was not an issue of concern even 2 weeks ago. Now it seems to be on the front burner, so we're proud of that. Yes, sir.
Thanks, Mr. Governor. What was Florida's jurisdiction with respect to that specific matter? They were in Texas and then was in Massachusetts. How did you get involved?
So we got involved. Well, we have operations on the Panhandle, and we've seized about $500,000 worth of drugs. There have been arrests for human smuggling, but this is like 1 or 2 people come in at a time. And unfortunately, what law enforcement does is just release the migrant and only goes after the smuggler. So we have people, and many of them say they'd like to go to Florida. And so basically the contractor is identifying who they think, they didn't necessarily say that, but they're profiling. And then they come to the Panhandle, and then the flight is goes from the Panhandle in. But there's really no way that you could do this effectively, because remember, $12 million to relocate away from Florida into sanctuary jurisdictions. So that's just been the most effective way way to do it. And, you know, at the end of the day, part of the reason is if you have a law enforcement bust, all the transport is voluntary. So if someone's already in Florida and that's where they wanted to be, we can say, hey, you know, we'll do a bus and bring up somewhere, but they do not have to do that. Here, I think it's a much more sensible thing to do, and I think it's been effective. Yes, sir.
To go back on topic, believe it or not. What about Venezuela? Would you consider targeting Venezuela like you are China?
Oh, well, right. I mean, yeah, we believe the regime in Venezuela is illegitimate. We believe that Maduro is a dictator along the lines of a Raul Castro, and I think he's done immeasurable damage to that country. I just met with Brazil's ambassador to the U.S. today. They have absorbed over 1 million people from Venezuela because of what's going on. But here's the thing. Biden was asked, hey, how come you can't keep control of the border? He's like, well, I'm having to deal with Cuba, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. Are those new dictatorships? Have those not been dictatorships for a long time? And not only that, he's soft on all those dictatorships. It would be one thing if he was actually willing to apply pressure and then say it's causing people to need asylum, but he's coddling them. He's willing to go and play footsie with Maduro. He didn't lift a finger last summer when the Cuban people were rising up to take on the Raul Castro regime. And of course, he's going to be buddy-buddy with Nicaragua and then the new Colombian president, who's very leftist. So that's just the nature of what we're seeing here. I've been opposed to them playing footsie with Maduro the whole time, but nevertheless, kind of here we are. Yes, ma'am. It's not an expenditure. What it is the money is there, and then as expenses are done, it'll get drawn down. But that has not been put to use necessarily. And remember, there's a lot of other things that go on this, just other than just the transport. Yes, ma'am.